think I'm not used to this shit going on. It is what it is. Been dealing with it my whole career, so.
So Maxx Crosby got very, very honest after the game, talking to some of the local reporters. And one of the things that I took away right away from what Maxx Crosby was saying, within all the different things that he kind of said that we'll talk about here in a second, is that he seems very frustrated, he seems very angry, and he doesn't seem very happy at this point. And I definitely understand it. I think he has so much passion. He was asked about the Davante Adams requesting a trade, and he had some interesting words for that.
How tough was it for you this week with all the Davante stuff?
Nah, it is what it is. You think I'm not used to this shit going on? It is what it is. Been dealing with it my whole career, so it is what it is. You know, Davante's my boy. I love Davante, and he's gonna do what he's gonna do. Praying for him, wish him the best. He's not healthy right now. He's got to get healthy. But we're focused on the Raiders. You know what I mean? We're focused on who's here now, and we're focused on winning. So, got to find ways to do that.
Now, I don't blame anything that Maxx Crosby is essentially saying when it comes to Davante Adams. Now, he does say Davante Adams has a real injury, which is kind of surprising to me. But more than that, he also says that, he's basically dealt with this shit his entire career with the Raiders. Davante Adams requesting a trade after 5 weeks. Players don't request trade after, and it was like 3.5 weeks, really. Players don't generally request trades that soon after the season starts. If you're unhappy, you request a trade before the season ever begins. But apparently what Davante Adams did with the Raiders isn't something new. And if you guys think about it, it's actually really not that new, right? Since the time Maxx Crosby has been here, we had this entire Antonio Brown situation happen, where Antonio Brown signs with the Raiders, and then he doesn't even play a snap for the Raiders. Instead, we end up releasing him before he ends up playing a snap. Then we had a quarterback in Derek Carr who brings over Davante Adams, and then he gets benched and he's gone. Then we have a head coach in John Gruden who's essentially fired in the middle of the season. Josh McDaniels, another head coach, fired in the middle of the season. Maxx Crosby has went through so much with the Raiders, and it's unfortunate because we're right here going through it with Maxx Crosby as well. A lot of us are diehard Raider fans, and all the stuff that's going on is just unfortunate. Now, Maxx Crosby isn't saying any of that in a negative way, right? He's saying it, of course, because he's frustrated, but more than that, because he's very passionate, and I can respect that, right? And that's one of the reasons why I respect Maxx Crosby so much. Now, this past week, if you guys follow the Raiders, you guys know there was a former general manager, Michael Lombardi, who was talking about Maxx Crosby. He went on the Pat McAfee show, and he said that he thinks Maxx Crosby is holding out. He's not showing up to the game, and he's unhappy, and he's essentially going to be the next player that's going to request a trade. And Maxx Crosby took some shots at this guy. Check this out.
And then I got to hear these, clowns that talking online and talking on the Pat McAfee show saying, something's going on, and they're speaking for me, saying I should be on the sideline when I got a high ankle sprain. You know what I mean? And these clowns they're sitting on the couch talking about what I should be doing. But the reality is I'm gaining yardage and trying to get right so I can get back on the field. Everybody knows my intentions, and they try to speak for me when, shit, if you speak to me and you know what's going on, then we could have a conversation, but don't speak on my name, you know what I mean, when you don't know what the hell is going on. I'm there. These guys know I take a bullet for them, everyone in this locker room. So when you got clowns that are online and talking on, they got their one day of the week where they get to go on the Pat McAfee show and talk, talking about what we should do, and you haven't even been a GM. You're a GM for 1 year, so it's embarrassing. You know what I mean? Don't speak for me. I'm gonna speak for my guys, and that's all I care about. So I really, I get bothered by that because I take a lot of heat, and I could do it. You know what I mean? I've been through that, but don't speak about me when you don't know what's going on, and you're speaking for me. You know what I mean? Or speaking about the organization. Oh, something must be going on with Matt. Come on, bro. You know where I want to be. You think I want to be anywhere else? No. I got the shit tatted on my body. I don't want to go anywhere. So at the end of the day, it's just funny. You got a lot of people that have a lot to say when they really don't know what's going on.
Just do that.
So I love that, man. I absolutely love that Maxx Crosby is setting it straight. Maxx Crosby loves playing for the Las Vegas Raiders. And I know the Raiders haven't, essentially shown to him that we are a team that can be consistent, a team that can win, a team that can have success. I don't personally think the Raiders are that far away, and the hope is that within the next 2 years, the Raiders have things turned around and we're actually having success down the line. But I love the fact that Maxx Crosby's coming out there. He's being brutally honest. He's telling us his thoughts and opinions on everything. And I could respect the hell out of that type of guy because that's what the Raiders need. Now, another thing the Raiders need is a quarterback, but we probably won't get that this season. But we do have 2 quarterbacks, and there are some issues between both guys. And Antonio Pierce was asked kind of about the benching. He was asked if he's essentially made a decision on who the quarterback's going to be. And his answer was pretty quick.
What are you going to do at quarterback? Will AOC be starting next week?
I don't know. I haven't answered that one yet.
So Antonio Pierce is not committing to either quarterback at this point, right? And he's not necessarily not committing to Gardner Minshew coming back and being the Raiders quarterback against the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's also not committing to the idea of Minshew not being the quarterback. And I think that's exactly what the Raiders should do at this point. 2 weeks ago when Gardner Minshew came out of the game and essentially at that point it was Aiden O'Connell that came in against the Panthers. At that point, I thought Antonio Pierce should have came out and said, hey, Gardner Minshew will be our quarterback going forward. But this time around, I'm not 100% sure with that. I'm not 100% sure if the Raiders shouldn't make the change to Aiden O'Connell. And you know what's unfortunate about this entire situation? Gardner Minshew actually started the game off really, really, really good. If Gardner Minshew doesn't throw a pick 6 to Patrick Surtain, instead he hits Brock Bowers accurately, and Brock Bowers runs it in for a touchdown, and the Raiders go up 17-3, Gardner Minshew's probably still the quarterback right now for the Raiders, like 100%. And Raider Nation's probably fired up after a huge performance because after that touchdown, he might come back on the next drive. And, he has the momentum. He's playing with confidence. The Raiders are having success. The group's fired up. The momentum's for the Raiders. But the opposite happened. He throws an interception, essentially plays terribly, and then essentially gets benched. To me, you can't have that, but it's unfortunate that that's where we're at with the Las Vegas Raiders. To me, it almost makes sense for the Raiders to make the change to Aiden O'Connell. Because, again, the season's not over. And I'm not saying Gardner Minshew is a terrible quarterback, and I wouldn't be okay with him going out there, but I also need to see another quarterback run the Luke Getsy offense. I need to see another quarterback. Now, I'm pretty sure Luke Getsy's the issue with the Raiders on the offensive side, but I'm also pretty sure I want to see Aiden O'Connell actually have a chance to run this offense to see what maybe Luke Getsy can or can't do. I was told for the longest time that Justin Fields was the issue. Justin Fields not a pocket passer. He can't make the passes. He can't play within structure. And I was told that when Luke Getsy finally gets a pocket passer, that everything's going to be great for Luke Getsy. He'll show us that he's, better than Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan. Well, I want to see that actually happen. Now, Gardner Minshew was asked a little bit about that play that he ultimately threw an interception on. And he was asked his thoughts and opinions, and I do respect what Gardner Minshew had to say.
The factors of the lull, what slowed you guys down after the hot start?
I don't know, man. Really gonna have to get back on the tape and see it. It's a lot easier to see it from that vantage point. So get in there, check it out, fix what we can.
Gardner, I know games don't come down to one play, but that did start a 31-0 run by them. Was it kind of an emotional kick to the stomach a little bit?
I don't know about emotional, but definitely swung the game. And obviously, I can't do that to our team. Put us in a bad spot. And, that swing was definitely on me.
Did you think you were held on that play?
Huh?
Did you think you were held?
I don't know about that, man.
Gardner, I apologize if you were asked this before we all got here, but can you put your finger on something in particular that you thought that happened today? Did you see it coming in practice? Anything in particular?
No, man, I thought we got off to a good start. And then I killed our momentum with a pick 6, And at the end of the day, I didn't even do a good enough job giving us a shot to be competitive in the game. So at the end of the day, that's on me. We'll show back up tomorrow, get back to work like we always do, and keep rolling.
Gardner, when Antonio makes the switch to O'Connell at the end of the third quarter, what's your thoughts? What's going through your head there?
It is what it is. Try to help the team whatever I can. Try to still be in Aiden's ear, tell him things I've been seeing, and keep providing positive presence on the sideline. At the end of the day, no matter what my role is on the team, I'm trying to help the team any way I can, and as far as getting back in the building tomorrow and getting back to work.
You're still a leader on this team.
Because essentially, when you guys listen to this guy actually talking about it right there, to me, he's taking ownership of that, right? He understands what he did within that moment. He understands it's his fault that he threw that interception and he essentially cost the Raiders this game. I think the biggest issue for the Las Vegas Raiders in this game was the fact that we had 3 turnovers on the offensive side and we forced no turnovers on the defensive side. The Broncos went for it on 4th down on the very first drive of the game. And the Raiders did not get off the field on 4th down, right? So they're essentially 1 of 1 on the only 4th down attempt that they had. those are moments where you got to force turnovers. Now, technically it's turnover on downs, but you got to force turnovers if you're the Las Vegas Raiders, because turnovers win football games. The Raiders had no turnovers. In fact, I think this season we've only forced 1 turnover. To me, the Raiders defense has to play a lot better. We got to force turnovers, but the offense also has to protect the football. So the Raiders have 3 turnovers essentially in this game. And that was probably the difference in this game, because if you guys look at this game statistically, the Raiders had a much, much better day than did the Denver Broncos. Across the board, third down efficiencies, the Raiders were a lot better. The Raiders were 7 of 15 on third downs. The Broncos were 3 of 12 on third downs. So the Raiders were a lot better, right? They're completing a higher percentage of their third downs, which also led to the Raiders possessing the football a lot longer, which also led to the Raiders just being generally better on the offensive side. The Raiders averaged more yards per play. They ran the ball at a higher, success rate. Everything about the Raiders against the Broncos on the offense side was better. The only issues were turnovers. That was the only difference in this game. Right? If the Raiders don't have 3 turnovers, you could potentially have won this game. Those 3 turnovers, 2 of them led to points, right? One was a pick 6. The second interception Gardner Minshew threw did not lead to anything. They ended up punting the football back to the Raiders. And then Aiden O'Connell's interception also led to a touchdown. So they scored 14 points off of our 3 turnovers. That's a lot of points. If you take away those 14 points, the final score is 18-20, right? So, I know it doesn't work exactly like that, but the Raiders gave this game away, just like they gave away some of the past games, right? Just like the Raiders gave that game away to the Chargers, as well as the Panthers. I think they gave this game away as well. I think so far the Raiders have done one thing that's consistent, and that's that they haven't been able to impose their will on any team, and they haven't actually been able to, I haven't seen a team actually come in and beat the Raiders. I really haven't. I've seen the Raiders control games, but they're, essentially allow teams to kind of stay close, and then they essentially lose those games, right? Like, for example, against the Chargers. The first half against the Chargers, we dominated the first half, but we weren't able to score touchdowns. We also gave them a couple of free points, right? I think there was a moment where we gave them a free 3 points off of a turnover. We gave them another free 3 points because we went for it on 4th downs on our side of the football field. And then against the Broncos is the same thing, right? We dominated in the first quarter. Even in the first, 2-3 minutes of the second quarter, we're dominating. But we made mental mistakes, right? And I think for the Raiders, that's one thing you got to clean up. You got to clean up those mental mistakes, because you can still have success down the line if you're able to clean some things up. It's going to take guys like Maxx Crosby to continue to call out the Las Vegas Raiders. Players, right? The guys in the room, you got to continue to call them out. You got to continue to make it known that that stuff's not acceptable. Antonio Pierce also talked about it in his presser. He said that, missed tackles were another big part of the Raiders not having success. I noticed this a couple times. He obviously noticed it as well. There were a couple of moments where the Raiders had guys wrapped up, or they had them stopped, and then they didn't bring the guy down. They're trying to knock the football out to force those turnovers. And the guy breaks away and he picks up 15, 20 yards. We had that happen a couple of times. You can't have that happen. You got to be able to make tackles and then hold those guys from gaining extra yards. The Raiders didn't do that. And that, I think, also kind of led to the Raiders losing. Overall, the Raiders should be able to bounce back. We got to play more cleaner on the offensive side. The defense needs to force some turnovers. I don't think the season's over by any means. I know some people aren't going to take that for what it is, but the Raiders season is not over by any means, right? We could right now have like 4 wins. Realistically, if you're just able to beat the teams you should have beat. Maybe the Panthers game was the one game where we got our ass kicked this season. But the other losses, right, at least today as well as the Chargers, those were winnable games. Those were games where you dominated at a certain point, and then the momentum just flipped because you made some mental mistakes. Hopefully the Raiders are able to bounce back. We'll see what ends up happening at the quarterback position. Aiden O'Connell, Gardner Minshew, I will support them, and I'll be happy to see those guys win against the Pittsburgh Steelers next week. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Thumbs up, subscribe, and I will see you guys next time with another video.